Okay, since voting is our topic of discussion here this morning, I thought we would do an expression for today that refers to voting. And but this vote is a little bit different. It's not necessarily a vote for president or for any public office, but sometimes people interpret votes in this way. So everyone, if you look at the screen here, here are expressions for the day. So you guys, you can just repeat them there with me at your computer or phone. So let's say it together. Vote of confidence. Vote of no confidence.
Vote of no confidence.
Yeah, so if you'll notice the picture here, it may be a little hard to see. So here's the cat. Now, some of you know cats. They love, what kind of animal or rodent do they love to catch? You can see a picture here of a little opening. Who can tell us? That's right, mice. So if you notice the cat here, the cat notices the mouse trap and says, "Wait a minute, you don't trust me?" So if you notice, the cat's thinking that's not exactly a vote of confidence. So the people who have the house here, they don't think the cat can catch the mouse. So here's a mouse trap. So the expression means a vote of confidence means when you show your approval of someone or something. So like a policy or a law. Or if you show no confidence, a vote of no confidence, it shows that you disapprove. Now, again, if we think about this in a political way, for example, here in the United States, we have elections for president and for Congress and for Senate at regular times, right? So, for example, the presidency is usually every 4 years. For representatives and senators, it's 2 years for representatives, 6 years for senators. Now, in some countries, though, for example, England, you can call a vote. Sometimes they want to say we don't trust our leader anymore, so we're going to call a vote. So sometimes people call this a vote of confidence or a vote of no confidence. So, for example, I'm curious in your countries, does anyone have a country where the elections are not at regular times? Are there countries from here in the group here? Are there anybody who has countries when if they want to vote for the president or for the leader, they can just call the vote anytime? Does anybody have that in their country? Or do you all have sort of regular elections?
All right.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go
I'm sorry.
ahead. Go ahead,
Uh,
Eduardo. Eduardo, you go first, and then
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. If you're talking about Venezuela, we have elections each 6 years.
Okay.
But in this moment, anybody, it's not fair election, no?
Okay. Sure.
It's not good election. That's it. But you have election continuously, but it's not the result. Is not the reality.
Oh,
Okay,
so
it's
so
not.
yeah, so I think you're talking about that maybe your elections are corrupt.
Right. In this
Yeah.
moment, that
Okay.
election is a corrupt. It's not
Yeah.
anybody like that election in this
Sure.
moment.
Okay. Yeah, so that's a little bit different here in this case, but yeah, I understand what you're saying. So Julie, what were you going to say?
sorry. I tried to explain you if you uh, can more clarification the answer the question because I don't understand.
Well, so for example, Julie, in some countries, in fact, I'll write it here in the chat box. They're often called referendums. So, for example, in some countries, let's use England as a good example. In England, you have lots of political parties. Here in the United States, we don't have that many political parties. But in England, for example, when one party is saying that they're not happy with a particular issue or a particular leader, they might say we need to call new elections and we need to see if we still have confidence in the leader. So again, sometimes in England they might have an election after maybe 2 years instead of 4 years or 6 years. So in this case, some countries don't have regular elections, at regular times. So like I said, England, for example, they can call an election anytime for voting. So what about in the Dominican Republic? Do the leaders have regular elections or can they call elections anytime?
Yeah, we have the regular election. For president, it's different. It's the same here. For president, it's in the different occasion. For the other members, it's different time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but
It's
still regular.
But it's regular because it's every 4 year.
Okay, so that, yeah, those are called regular elections. Now, Stephanie mentioned in Brazil, looks like you have regular elections. So, Stephanie, how often do they have elections in Brazil? Is it every 4 years, every 6 years?
4 years.
So, and that's just for the president, or is that for other people in the government too?
For all the government. So now they're gonna have elections for mayors and government.
Okay.
And in 2 years, gonna be president again.
I gotcha. Yeah, that's like the United States. Okay.
Yep.
What about in Japan, guys? Does Japan have regular elections, or do they call elections when they want to vote on a particular topic or leader?
We have regular election, but sometimes the leader said the leader said do the election, then we can do the election.
So you can call. He can call for elections then.
Yeah, call for election.
Yeah. So you notice that's not possible in the United States. We don't do that here. So okay. So that's in a way that's kind of like a vote of confidence or a vote of no confidence if they want new elections. Okay. All right. That's good. Let's see. I'm trying to look at the participants here. Let's see. Any other countries I've missed? So, for example, Fatima, Saba. What about in your countries? Are elections regular?
Okay, for Morocco, as you know, it's a kingdom, so
Yeah.
we just like elect for the government. So it's irregular, but sometimes when there is like a regular way or something, they do an election, but it's not like, let's see, it's gone just one times or two, as I know.
Okay.
It's not common.
Okay.
But it's a regular.
So regular. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Mie in South Korea. Hello, Mie. Are you there?
Sorry.
There you are.
Yeah. Korea is regular election for just one term.
One term.
For every 5 years for president and every 4 years governor.
So how do you think about that? Do you think it's good that the president can serve only one term?
Yes. For me, it's okay.
Okay. Well, here in the United States, I think some people are wishing maybe we could do one term instead of two. Of course, here in America, guys, we used to be able to let presidents serve as many terms as they could if they kept getting elected, but that changed. That changed a few years ago. All right. Thank you, Mie. Let's see. What about Mexico? We've got a couple of students from Mexico here. So, Dulce, let's
Hello.
see. Carlos there.
In Mexico was to be a regular election.
Okay.
But with the new presidents, it's changed because, because the last president really was terrible.
Okay.
For this reason, this new president changed the constitution.
Oh.
They will be a new election every 3 years.
Okay.
For the referendum.
Interesting. So I think my students from Venezuela understand this, right? The president changing the constitution.
Right.
But I think it's really interesting because really you don't want to have a bad president for 6 years in Mexico.
Well, and I think, what's interesting here, guys, and again, if this is, again, sort of a little commercial for our citizenship class, but I think it's an interesting discussion because I think here in the United States, some people would love to have very limited terms, even for the government. Here in the United States, we don't have limits. People can run for office, forever if they want to be a representative or a senator. So I think, my opinion, that this is just my little opinion. So don't think if this is, this is the rule. But I do think it would be good if we had more limited elections for our government. And I think having 2 terms for the president is fine, but I definitely think we need limits on our other political offices. Let's see, Sunny, what about in Taiwan? How do they do things there? So Sunny, in Taiwan, do we have regular elections?
Yeah, it's regular. In Taiwan, same the America.
Uh-huh.
We copy many things from America.
Okay.
The president can serve 2 terms, but just the voting age, in Taiwan, 21 can vote.
Really? So just 21? Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And I'm curious, guys, if you want, in the chat box, if you want to tell me how old you have to be to vote in your country, if you just want to tell me real quickly in the chat box. Sunny mentioned 21. So if you want to tell me the age in your country to vote. And let's see, Sandra, I see you've joined us here. So Sandra, welcome to our group. So Sandra, we're talking about the elections in our country. So Sandra, I think you're from Cuba, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
So now Cuba is a little bit different from other countries. So how often do you have elections in Cuba?
Yeah, every year.
So what do you vote for the I don't know what you call the president. Do you vote for the president of Cuba, the leader, every year?
Yeah, every year.
Really?
But no for the president.
Okay. So how
It's a little
often
different.
how often do you vote for the president?
Well, I never vote for the president.
Well, you're
It's a
probably
little
too young, right?
different.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Cuba is still a communist country, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so maybe it is a little different. So, of course, Fidel
Yeah.
Castro was president forever, right? I mean, he was the
Yeah.
leader for a long time. Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, so I'm looking at the chat box. It looks like most people have 18 for the age, but I notice, Stephanie, you mentioned in Brazil you could be 16 to vote. Is that true?
Actually, in Brazil, vote is mandatory at the
Yes.
age 18. But if you were 16 and you want to vote, you can.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, so mandatory. That's interesting. So in Brazil, it's required to vote. That's very interesting. Some countries like Australia, for example, it's mandatory too. What about other groups? What about other students here in the class? Is it required to vote in your country? Is it mandatory? You can just say yes or no. Because here in the United States, of course, it's not. Okay, so no.
Actually, it's not. But sometimes, like, because there is an election for the constitution,
Uh-huh.
and I'm not sure what the long time the election for it, but sometimes it's like I remember exactly when I was 18 old,
Mhm.
my grandpa like take my ID and he elects for me.
Okay.
Yeah, someone like in the family, the older one can like elect for the other people.
Uh-huh.
So they said it's yes for the constitution.
I see.
I think there is nobody can tell no for the constitution.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
Yeah.
that's a little different here, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Well, yeah, so I see here most people are saying no, but in Brazil, yes. Okay. Yeah, so in the United States, of course, we don't have mandatory voting either, but in some countries they do, and I know that you have to pay a lot of money if you don't vote. So maybe this is also true in Brazil. So in Brazil, do you have to pay a fine or something, Stephanie, if you don't vote?
Yes. And also, if you want to just like take a passport or get out of the country, you need to like vote and pay your tips and everything for this.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, guys, this is a really fascinating conversation here, learning about voting in your country. But let's come back to our expression. So, again, vote of confidence or vote of no confidence can be something political, but it also can be done at the workplace. It could also be done with a particular leader or any particular topic. So I thought what we would do real quickly for our chat question is that often we give votes of confidence to people we think are capable of doing a specific job. Now, so it's not necessarily like a vote, but sometimes it is. People might say, do you want this person to be the leader? And everybody might say yes, or yay, or something like that. So what I thought we would do here real quickly is, let's say, for example, you're on a team. You're on a committee at your job or in your company, and you want to show your vote of confidence for someone in the group. So I was curious, we can use the microphones or we can use the chat box. What are some things people say? Like, what are actual words people say when they want to show that they have a vote of confidence in somebody? That they believe someone is the best choice to be the boss or the leader of a particular project. So again, you can use the chat box, or if you'd like to use the microphone. What do you think people say when they want to show their support and show that they have a vote of confidence in someone? What do you think?
In my view, most people are like sometimes like a fanatic. So also one option for that people or for some person is just the last option. If the other people wins or all is destroy the other party, say the same thing. It's a controversial, but each part give is very point of view, right? And it's a very some people, yes, in political it's some people have a fanatic in political.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have any thoughts? What would you say to show your support for somebody? Like, what words would we use? What phrases would we use? Again, you could use the chat box or the microphone. What do you think?
I think the background and the level of seriousness is very important for particular for me.
So for Ian, would you say, I think this person, like, would you say, for example, this person is serious and
he has a good historical for the past?
Okay. So good experience, good understanding. Okay.
Yes, and he showed the facts and the act, noise only word.
Oh, okay. I like that. So they understand the facts. They understand. Okay.
Yes.
That's good. I see Carlos in the chat box mentioned good leadership. Yeah. So that's this person has good leadership, good knowledge about this particular issue. So maybe public service. Okay. Any other words we might say to show our support for someone? Again, imagine you're at work. Imagine you're on a team, and someone says, "I choose this person to be the leader of the organization or the team." So what would you say to show your vote of confidence? Would you say, yes, this is the best person for the job? Like, what are some things we might say? Anybody else?
We can trust or reliable.
Okay, so we can trust this person. This person's reliable. I like it. Okay. I like it.
Very responsible.
Responsible. I like that. Okay.
Trustworthy.
Ooh, good word. Trustworthy. That's a good one.
Strategic thinking.
Good strategic thinking. Ooh, that sounds very business-like.
Problem solving.
Ooh, excellent.
Communication, right?
So maybe what, good communication skills?
Good communication skills.
Okay, excellent. Okay.
Active listening.
Interesting. All right, good active listener. This sounds like you've been applying for jobs here, Dulce. Okay, now let's take the opposite point of view. So, for example, what if there is somebody at work who's leading a particular team or a leader in some position, and you have no confidence in this person? What do you think some people, if they're trying to kind of debate and discuss what kinds of words that we might say that we don't have the confidence of this person anymore? Maybe somebody who's been in a scandal, for example. What do you think people might say then? Sometimes you hear this in the news, right, about leaders. So what do you think? What are some words we might use in that case?
Liar.
That's a little strong, isn't it? He's a liar.
Liar. Yes.
Okay. Stephanie says unreliable. Okay. Okay. So
I agree with Saba.
okay. Saba, I think we're getting a lot of political discussions here. Okay. A lot of feelings about it. All right.
I don't trust them. No.
Okay.
No.
So
I never. You can imagine that I never vote for anybody.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's the problem, Saba. We would never vote anybody if we don't trust them.
I can't trust anybody.
That's too bad.
Yes.
That's too bad.
In my country, not here. In my
see.
country.
Well, I don't know. Sometimes the United States is the same, right?
Yes. Yes.
All right. Anybody else? Let's see. Not experienced enough. Okay. Needs more experience. Okay. Good. Good. Or sometimes people might say, like, for example, they might say the person has the wrong experience. Okay. Any other words we might say? Any other phrases? I can think of some strong words. For example, I can think of this word. I'm putting it in the chat box now. Failure. So that might be a pretty strong word. But again,
we can say cheater.
Cheater?
Yeah.
These are really strong words here, Saba. You're really kind of negative here, aren't you? Okay.
Too old.
Oh, too old. Oh my goodness. Well, what's interesting here, I think, Risa, you mentioned, you used the word there. Some people think of this as ageist, you know, that we, and especially I think maybe all of you can agree, but here in the United States, some people think that we are too focused on age. Like if you reach a certain age, now they're too old. And of course, what's interesting is you look at the two people running for president. I mean, they're both in their mid 70s. I mean, so they're pretty old, but still, that's interesting. Okay. Anybody else?
When I saw these things, I think we need the values on the family.
Oh, okay. So maybe we say this person has no family values, or
yeah. We need
maybe
more honesty.
More honesty, not very honest. Okay, well, that's kind of like liar, but liar seems kind of negative. But if we say not very honest, that might be a little nicer to say. So, okay. Well, anyway, guys, we could spend all day here. I'm sure many of you are from countries where you feel this way a lot about your leaders. But anyway, so let's finish up with our discussion. So again, our expression for the day is called vote of confidence, or vote of no confidence. So once again, sometimes it's political, sometimes it's something we do in the workplace, and sometimes it's just kind of a show of approval or a lack of approval, disapproval for someone. So again, often we use it when people are showing support. You might say, thank you for your vote of confidence. Like if you say, I think this person is the best person for the job. The person might say, well, thank you for that vote of confidence. You know, thank you for showing your support. So again, notice it's not always a vote. It's not always just people raising their hand or voting. It may just be someone showing their belief in someone to do something. So, okay, well, guys, thank you so much for that. Okay, well, let's get into the second half of our chat here today, quickly talking about our topic. And our topic is a pretty important one here in the United States, and that is the 100th anniversary of women's suffrage. Now, you might say, what does suffrage mean? Well, that's one of the words we're going to learn here this morning. So it's a pretty important word. I think most of you would agree that voting is a very important process. So today, we're going to learn a little bit about the 19th Amendment. And again, I'll explain all of this here in just a moment. But the basic idea here is 100 years ago today, basically we passed the 19th Amendment into the Constitution, which basically gave the right to vote to women in the United States. Now, I want to be clear, there were already some territories and states that were allowing women to vote, but it was not the same all over the United States. So many women, especially in the late 1800s and early 1900s were fighting for their right to be to get that vote. So again, we'll talk more about some of the women who were very much responsible for this next week. But today we're just kind of looking at the right to vote and an interesting little story that came up in the news this past week. Now, again, the United States was not the first country to give the right to vote to women. Now, I'm curious if you guys know when women had the right to vote in your countries. But here in the United States, the right to vote was actually done in some other places first. Now, it really depends on what you call a country. For example, New Zealand and Australia, they gave the right to vote first before the United States did, probably about 30 years before. But at the time, they were not considered independent countries. They were actually part of Great Britain, so they were part of they were colonies, but they were self-governing, so they did get to make that choice themselves. So again, there were a few other countries that gave the right to vote first, but the truth is the United States was sort of the first major economy to do so. So, as I said before, next week we'll look at some of the pioneers who were responsible. But today we're going to look at the amendment itself, okay? And I'm going to get you guys to help me. And then we're going to listen to just a brief little story that you're going to be listening to for homework, an article that came up in the news this past week. Okay, now I'm going to ask a volunteer here to read this to us. So I'm going to choose, let's see, I'm going to choose, how about Fatima? You get to be the volunteer here. Fatima, would you read this text here on the screen for us? Okay, so Fatima, go ahead and turn on your microphone there. Can you read this for us?
It's up to read it without sound. Okay. The 19 amendments, the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. Congress shall have power to enforce their article by appropriate legislation.
All right, very good. Now, everybody, I highlighted this word here in the middle. So everyone, you can just repeat this word after me. So everyone, let's say it together. Abridged. Abridged.
Abridged.
Yeah, so if you don't know the word abridged, let's talk about it real quickly. So you should see here on the screen. So I'm going to zoom in, so hopefully you can see the definition. So abridge means to shorten something without words, by an omission of words. Okay, so that's the first definition. But actually, the abridged meaning that we are talking about is definition number 3 here on the screen. And that definition means to reduce in scope. So you might notice the word diminish. Some of you may have heard that word diminish. Diminish means to make smaller or to reduce something. So what that means is to reduce the power of something. So when we use the word abridge in this meaning, it means to try to reduce someone's power or authority. So if we go back for just a moment, notice it says that the right to vote shall not be abridged. It shall not be reduced. So in this case, what it means is you can't put any qualifications when it comes to sex. Women, and of course at the time, believe it or not, there was no, when this was passed, there was no national voting age. So some states they could vote earlier, and some states they could vote later, 16, 17, and so on. So actually we didn't get the 18-year-old age vote until later. But still, what this means is that basically that right now cannot be reduced. If you're a woman, as a citizen of the United States, you now have the right to vote. So that word abridge, we see that a lot when we talk about rights because we don't want to reduce people's rights. So remember, at this time, women had some rights to vote in other places in the United States, but it was not the right to vote everywhere. And of course, especially to vote for the president. So in this case, this was a very important moment. So today, August 26th, 100 years ago, so 100 years ago was 1920, women were able to have the right to vote. So that's pretty important. And of course, Congress has the power to enforce it. It's their responsibility. Okay, now we have some new words that I'd like to talk about real quickly. So again, I'm going to ask some different people to read for us. So Carlos, you're at the top here. Carlos, turn on your microphone, and can you read the Constitution definition for us?
Okay. The Constitution, the supreme law of the United States. The document was written in 1988 and adopted in 1989.
All right, now Carlos, two things. I think you want to look at the dates again.
The dates, okay, 17.
There you go.
88. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, 1988.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Carlos. So again, the Constitution is the law of our country. So most of you probably are familiar with that, but it was written a long time ago. Okay. Let's see. Yuka, would you like to read the amend and amendment definition for us?
Amendment. To change a law. If you want to amend the Constitution, first Congress must propose a new law. There are 27 amendments to the Constitution.
So to amend means to change. So if you remember, I mentioned the Constitution did not have any direct mention of voting. So most people just assumed that you could vote if you lived in the United States and if you had property, if you had a house or some sort of land. So remember, at the time, the Constitution did not mention anything about women or men or the right to vote. So that's one of the problems of the Constitution, is it didn't say directly who could and who could not vote. So it was very much kind of a cultural issue at the time. Who could vote at the time was mostly about culture and not necessarily about the right. So in this case, to amend the Constitution means to change it. And just to let you know, we have not changed our Constitution very often. There are only 27 amendments, 27 changes that we have made to the Constitution in the last 200 years. So think about that. That's not a lot of changing. Some of you have countries like Venezuela, for example, where the president just changes the Constitution completely. So in this case, in the United States, we don't want to change our Constitution very often. Okay, I have two more words I'd like for us to look at. So for the next one, how about, let's see, Julie, would you like to read the ratify and ratification definition for us?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
The ratification, ratification.
Ratify.
Verify, clarification. None. To pass into law by approval of a group of people. 75% of the state had to ratify the
It's a Wednesday morning, right? Constitution
to put into law.
Okay, thank you, Julie. So guys, the word ratify means that if you want to make, like for example, to make the Constitution and then to change the Constitution, that is also not easy in the United States. 75% of the states, so the states are the ones who have to choose or vote on this proposal. So in this case, it takes a very, very, very solid group of people, majority, to ratify or to make a ratification to the Constitution. Okay, our final word over here on the right side. So Mie, would you like to read the definition of suffrage and suffragist?
Yeah, suffragist, to right to vote. Suffragists were mostly women in the late 1800s.
Very good.
Who protested for the right to vote.
Yeah, so a suffragist, again, we usually refer to women mostly because they were the ones fighting for the right to vote. But again, men were also trying to fight for women as well. But the truth is it was mostly women. So suffrage, okay, so suffrage. Everyone, that word suffrage. Let's say that word together again. Suffrage. Suffragist. Now, if you notice, we don't use the word suffragist much anymore because the truth is most people do have the right to vote now. But suffrage means the right to vote. That's what, when we use that word suffrage, that's what we're going to use. Okay, so guys, thanks for doing that. Now, let's go ahead and do our listening activity. Now, the listening activity we're going to do is very short, and looking at our time, we may do this activity just together. So we may not have enough time to do this first part. But the idea is we're going to do a short listening activity. And this listening activity is actually the beginning of a listening activity that we're going to do for homework. Okay, so if you don't have internet connection, Sandra, just try the best you can, but you'll get to listen to it. You'll get to listen to it for homework. So the listening that we're going to hear, again, it's just a small part of the listening activity you're going to do for homework. And then we're going to do this activity. I don't know that we have time to do it individually, so I think we're just going to do it together as a group. But the idea is I'm going to play the article, and what we're going to do is answer these questions together. Okay, so because, again, our time is a little short. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change screens for just a moment. So give me just a moment here. And I'm going to pull up the link here in the screen. Okay, so I'm going to share it with you. You should be able to see it in your chat box. Just a few questions. And in fact, the first one is already pretty easy here to answer. So I kind of made the first one easy for us. All right, so everybody, if you want to, in the chat box, I'm going to post the link to the form. So if you want to go ahead and click on that link just to look at the questions, okay? Now, I'll read the questions right now. So if you can open the link, I'm going to read the questions to the group. Okay, so question number 1 says, which amendment to the Constitution is being discussed in the article? Now, I think we already know the answer to that. All right, question number 2 mentions a very important event. It's called the Seneca Falls Convention. So the question is, why is the Seneca Falls Convention mentioned in the article? So look at the 3 choices that you see there. Okay, number 3 mentions a state. And this state that you're going to hear about was very important to passing this amendment. So let's see if we can guess what state it is. And then finally, number 4, which of the following strategies were used by opponents to try to stop the amendment? So again, if you notice there are 4 choices here, I'll give you a hint. 2 of them will be the answer. So once again, we're going to listen to this, and you can just look at the answers there on this. You can just look at the questions on the screen. So hopefully you'll have no issues with your internet connection, but I'm going to go ahead and turn this back on. And we're going to listen just to the first part of this article, and let's see if we can answer those questions, okay? So, okay, I'm going to bring it back up on the screen. All right, and now let's just listen to the first couple of minutes. So here we go.
It was just 39 words added to the U.S. Constitution. The 19th Amendment, ratified 100 years ago tomorrow, secured women the right to vote. And the final step toward ratification hinged on one young man in Tennessee and his mother. NPR's Melissa Block brings us that story.
Long after the Seneca Falls Convention launched the movement in 1848, after suffragists had marched, picketed the White House, staged hunger strikes, and endured force feeding in prison, finally, in August of 1920, their dream was in sight. They needed just one more state for the 19th Amendment to be enshrined in the Constitution.
Tennessee turns out to be their last best hope, and that terrifies them.
Because they knew other states weren't going to budge, and opposition in the South was fierce, explains Elaine Weiss. Her book, The Woman's Hour, is all about the dramatic suffrage battle in Tennessee, where opponents used racism and the fear of Black women's empowerment to stoke resistance.
Okay, so that's all we're going to listen to here. And again, you'll get a chance to listen to it again in just a moment. So what I'd like to do is, let's see how much we can answer of the questions together. So on the screen, I'm going to bring up the questions. and let's see if we can answer them. And again, if you want to answer by yourself, that's fine, but we can kind of do it together here. Okay, so for example, and again, if you want to use your microphone, you can help us out here. So number one was probably pretty easy, right? Who can tell us the answer to number one? Yeah, the 19th Amendment. Yeah, so notice it says it must be a number. Okay, let's look at number two. Now, it mentioned the Seneca Falls Convention. Which one is the correct answer? So, for example, did it help women learn how to protest the White House? Did it help launch the women's movement for the right to vote? Or was it the location where many suffragists were imprisoned? Which one do you think? Do you think it's one, two, or three?
It helped launch the woman movement to right of the vote.
Wow, Fatima, you're on fire. All right, so yes, it actually helped the women launch that right to vote. So the Seneca Falls Convention happened in the 1840s. And it was basically an opportunity for a lot of women to get together and to kind of protest, but it was not at the White House, okay? All right, now Fatima, let's see if somebody else can answer this next one, okay? Who can tell us what state was important?
Tennessee.
Congratulations. So believe it or not, guys, Tennessee was the important state to help when it came to passing that final state that they needed to ratify the amendment. Okay, and then finally, number four, the opponents, the people who were against the suffrage for women, what particular strategies did they use to try to stop the amendment? So again, I told you there were two.
The strikes.
Good guess, but no, that's what the women did to protest.
Creating fear and resistance.
Yeah, so that's one of them.
And racism.
Yes, racism. Those were the answers. So for example, we can see our score. Let's see how we did. All right, we got 5 out of 5. So those were the answers. Now, don't worry, if you didn't hear or if you had trouble hearing, you'll get a chance to listen to the article in its entirety. But this kind of helps us begin that process. So once again, you're going to learn about how did the state of Tennessee play a very big part in passing this 19th Amendment, because it was. They were not very sure that people in Tennessee were going to choose this. They had lots of opposition. So that's what you're going to learn here for homework. So let's talk about that. So when class is finished here this afternoon for my second class, I'm going to post the assignment in the Google Classroom. Now, in the Google Classroom, I've posted some vocabulary slides. So again, some of the words we talked about this morning, suffrage, ratify, amendment, they are in that presentation, but there's some other words that you might need help with. So I created a slideshow, and the slideshow has little audio files. So you can click on them to listen to the words and listen to the definitions. So my advice is first, practice with those words. Review them before you listen to the article. Then there will be the listening activity. Now, the listening activity will be exactly like what we did here this morning. So I have included the whole article, the whole story. It's about 7 minutes. And there are some additional questions that you need to answer in that form. Okay? So I will post this this afternoon after my second class, and you will need to finish this activity before next Wednesday. So you just listen to the article and just answer the questions. Okay?